Hello, Internet. I am Corione, your witch in residence here on YouTube. So, my wife and I got into a bit of a debate last night. The question became, could Hayden Christensen act? And the debate came down that we decided to watch a couple of Hayden Christensen movies and see whether he can act. And it turns out he can, oddly enough. And the movie that settled it for us was Life as a House. Now, I know this is a movie that was kind of popular in the 90s, but has quickly fallen off the wayside. It's a very odd movie, and it deals with some weird topics that I think could only happen in California. But there is a central theme to the film, and I do want to discuss it. But before we get too deep into it, some of my viewers still have not subscribed to my channel, and I would really appreciate it if you would consider today subscribing, and if possible, leaving a like on this video. It really helps out the channel, and if you guys could share it out, it would really mean a lot to me because it means more people I reach, the more I can spread the message that positivity can work on YouTube, and we should be discussing things we like instead of dwelling on that which we despise. So, with that obligatory ritual out of the way, let's discuss Life as a House. So, the central theme to it is it follows the main character who is an architect, and the architect finds out on the day he's fired from his firm that he is dying of cancer. And he has a very limited window of life remaining. And he decides that he wants to build the dream house he always wanted. And to do it, he engages with his son, played by Hayden Christensen, that has gone down a pretty negative hole. And so a lot of the movie is about him rebuilding that relationship, which he wanted to, and building this house with the people that he loves and cares about in his life. And it got me thinking, if I had a limited time frame left, what would I choose to do? And I think it's an important question to ask yourself every once in a while. If you had 6 months left to live, what would you do with that 6 months? Would you spend the entire time in grief? Would you try to leave some sort of legacy? Would you build something that would endure and act as a memory to those who move on after you? And, the more I thought about it, the more I realized that this is kind of my legacy, right? Being here with you guys, putting my thoughts out on pop culture, sharing my ideas with you guys is the house I built with the time I have left. Now, thankfully, being a witch, my intention is, of course, to live forever and continue to do this for all time, so I don't have to worry too much about legacy. But, something could happen, and I may have a limited time. And I'm very thankful that the messages I pass on, the things I ask you guys to think about, hopefully will resonate. Hopefully you will ask others to think about too, and that will be the legacy I leave to others. And that fills me with a great sense of joy and a great sense of pride that I've been able to do that for you guys and with you guys, and that we've collectively learned and grown accordingly. And I really appreciate that. So I wanted to talk about some of the other people who knew they had a limited time and have left legacies, both positive and negative. We can talk about some of the great people in existence who have done this, right? We can talk about those campaigners who had very limited time frames left. And even people who didn't realize that they had time frames left, but did still leave a legacy, right? Think about some of the great historical figures that knew they were operating on borrowed time, but did the greatest things they could with what time they had, right? Think about those leaders who knew they were receiving death threats, like Martin Luther King, for example. He knew he was receiving death threats. He knew one of them would eventually succeed, but he chose to do everything he could with the time he had. I would even argue that Kennedy was in the same boat, that he knew people were moving against him. He knew that there were threats on his life, and he did what he could with it. Um, there is discussion that Ronald Reagan, even when his health started declining, put as much as he could into memoirs so that people would have that legacy and have his thoughts to help guide future generations. And I think that's wonderful. Even if I don't agree on all points with all of these individuals, the fact that they chose to not suffer in pain, but to do something wonderful with the time they had, right? I am a big fan of Bruce Lee as a philosopher and as a martial artist. And when he wrote his book on Jeet Kune Do, he wrote it thinking that at the time he may never walk again. So he wanted to leave his legacy for future generations of martial artists. That's a fantastic lesson, right? Now, as it turned out, he did wind up walking again and went on to be one of the greatest martial artists of all time. But we got to hear about it. We got to see that wonderment and realize that this was what he figured his one shot was. This was his legacy, right? So think about your legacy. Think about what you're going to leave behind. Because beyond memories, we're here to leave an impression on other people. And I want to make sure that that impression is a positive one. And I don't think I should wait until I've only got 6 months left to live before making sure I'm leaving a positive impression on the world around me. And I don't think you should either. I definitely think you should reach out to those around you and start building what you want to leave behind today, because you may not be able to in time when the time comes. And I think it would be a great thing to be able to leave a legacy for others. Something I don't get to talk about a lot is my mother-in-law, who I was very close with. My mother-in-law had a very, very large family, and I was the only one of the kids, in-law or not, that was allowed into her kitchen to cook with her. And we worked as a well-oiled machine. And when she wound up with brain cancer and was quickly declining, I knew that her legacy was going to be safe because all of her kids grew up knowing just the kind of classy lady that she was, knowing how she felt about family and how important it was to her that her family grow and continue and pass on those lessons that are generationally important, right? That certain things need to be remembered and reviewed routinely so that others will carry on those traditions. And that's what she did. She made sure her girls were strong and fierce and able to stand on their own when needed, but were also strong enough to realize when they needed help and were not afraid to reach out to their partners to do so. And she made sure all of her son-in-laws were able to take care of her daughters and to build the kind of future and family that would make her and her subsequent generations proud. And that's what we've done. And I'm very thankful and honored and in a lot of ways humbled to have been brought into that tradition as part of that family. And to this day, I'm going to be forever grateful about it. So think about your legacy. Think about what you're leaving behind for others. And please join together with everyone else and in the comments, share what you intend to leave behind and talk about what legacy means to you. And if it's not important to you, mention that too. Mention that you feel that legacy is not something that you're concerned about or that you're interested in, even. That's okay too. But I'd love to hear your points and I'd love to discuss it and debate it in the chat. So please, guys, reach out there. You can always reach out to me and discuss anything you'd like privately as well. I'm here for you guys. So, with all that in mind, I would also like to add in that there are some other very interesting pieces of this movie, and it does deserve a deeper dive at some point, up to and including the craziness of the women involved in this movie, the the Hayden Christensen character and his journey into self-discovery that he takes, and even, some of the very, very minor characters in this that have standout spotlight moments that make everything shine that much brighter. I think it's worth taking a look at. I would love to hear your thoughts on the movie as well. I will also say that I absolutely love the soundtrack for this movie and do recommend it to anyone. It's got that 90s grungy kind of feel to it that really applies and touches deeply to my soul. So, guys, take a look at it. See what you think. I think it's worth a review. Thank you very much. I'm going to end the video off here, guys. Merry meet, merry part, and merry meet again. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.